Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here.
Here. Sorry, Ms. Riley couldn't make it this evening due to a family commitment. First, I'll announce this meeting is being recorded by Saugus Community Television, and if anyone else is recording the meeting, would you please announce it at this time? Seeing none, we will go on to public comment. Mr. Nicholas? Welcome.
School Committee.
What's your name for the record, please?
My name is Gregory Nicholas. I'm the Youth and Recreation Director. I'm also coming as the point person for the Regional MOPC grant, MOAPC, that the town manager has signed on with 3 other communities, participating communities, Winthrop, Revere, Chelsea, and Saugus. It started this past fiscal year, July 1st. It's a 3-year grant. And I'm here to invite you to an informational community meeting that we're going to be having at Town Hall on September 25th. It's a Wednesday evening, 7 to 9. I spoke with the superintendent earlier, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and just give this little blurb. Basically, it's the reason for the 25th is to have all information available for officials like yourselves. We hope that the school officials will be there, administration, school committee, selectmen, town meeting members. Of course, the manager will be there because he's the one that's signed us on. And we're going to send it out to all the residents so that any questions that anybody has regarding this grant, what it entails, they can ask. All the members from Mass General Hospital, which are working as our guides, if you will, from Revere as the host community, and DPH will be there to answer questions, and it's just a good opportunity for the community to understand what it is that we're involved in. We are a member of what's called the Aldi's Rock, WROC, is the Winnisemmet Regional Opioid Collaborative. And what this means for Saugus is we're looking at different strategies and effective approaches to help with the opioid, but it's not just opioid. The whole emphasis is prevention, and schools are looked at as the biggest stakeholders in this because they can help us with general prevention and making good choices. So that's what I'm here for. Also, the superintendent and I were both invited to the 28th for the Metro North YMCA strategic planning, so this could dovetail with that.
Oh.
So, any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, the superintendent has a wellness advisory committee. Is this, as I had asked you previous, does this work hand in hand with that as well?
Yes, it very well could. I sit on that wellness advisory committee, and we haven't met yet under this new superintendent. We haven't met this school year, but I'm looking forward to that because this will work hand in hand with it, as it could work hand in hand with the Metro North YMCA's strategic plan. So there's opportunities here, and it very well could dovetail nicely into the wellness, mandatory wellness.
Yes, I think it would. What about the town departments such as the Board of Health, and they were used to be very active in these?
Yes, I have reached out to the Board of Health. I've gone to the meetings a few times, and they were very open and welcoming. And I think, the meeting that the superintendent had with all the leadership, was it 2 weeks ago? It's a great move. The manager also was in the same mindset of bringing everyone together, collaborating, that we all serve the same goal, quality of life in Saugus. So there's definitely room for collaboration.
Well, that's excellent, because we're all working toward the same goal, and using all our resources or pulling them together, working together. It's a lot easier, even when you're, coming up with a plan or strategies here within the schools, to have the resources outside of the school as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, and I don't think it's malicious, because I'm doing collaboration regionally, and it happens in other communities. What tends to happen is that silo approach. People operate in little silos, and they forget. And I don't think it's malicious, but I think the new leadership on both sides, on the town hall side with Scott Crabtree and with the superintendent and everybody, that's the mentality, is collaboration for the same goals. How we can better use our resources and serve the community, so.
Yeah, because this is not a school issue, it's a community issue.
It's a community
We've been
issue, and that's the
saying
one thing you've heard me say, I've been up here.
Over and over.
These are not school issues.
Right.
These are community and societal ills, and they are growing. And the latest data is alarming, and, people look at me, I'm not Chicken Little, but it is what it is. And this comes from DPH, you can't make this stuff up. And so I have to say, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful. I've been doing this is my 16th year, and I would say that this has given me the most hope as of yet, and with all the new administrative changes too, so we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you. Committee have any questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So
Appreciate it.
remember, if you could I'll be working with the superintendent and the manager to get it out on the September 25th, Wednesday evening, Town Hall, 7 to 9. As many town officials and residents can get there.
And we're also going to send out a message home for that and advertise that. I'm meeting with the district leadership team. We'll have a meeting before that, so that we'll go to that meeting prepared with their perspective at each school level, and also try to have our identified list of concerns in anticipation of the at-risk report that's coming out soon. So it's certainly been identified as a concern in meeting with groups through the entry process, and even during the interview process for the job. I was fairly moved by the articulation of high school students looking for help for their peers. And they came right out and said this is a concern. So it's right on our front burner. So it's great to work with Greg. So
Thank you very much.
looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
I'd like to hear about more collaborative things happening. Special presentation this evening. Actually, the school committee did meet at 6 o'clock, and we did not go into executive session, but we did have a special presentation on the new superintendent evaluation. We have set a meeting, I know it's later on in the agenda, but we were talking about setting up meeting to initiate the process and setting up the goals and objectives for the superintendent's evaluation. So next on the agenda, we do have student representative, none this evening. We'll do approval of the minutes. We have the last set from August 22nd.
I was not present, so I can't vote, and neither was Mr. Malone, so you don't have a,
We'll just table
Table.
to next meeting.
make a motion to table the minutes till next meeting?
Chair seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay. And we have voting of warrants. I know the Executive Director of Finance and Operations is not with us this evening, but does the superintendent want to highlight anything in particular on this?
Everything on there is pretty straightforward. I can't think of anything on there. You've seen it. Do you have any questions about anything that I could? There's a few gift account things, but pretty straightforward. I don't know if anything that warrants any specific mention.
Do you have any questions on the warrant?
Do you have a question? No. Madam Chair?
The Doucette?
Make a motion to approve the warrant submitted to us by Paula G. Andrews, Executive Director of Finance and Operation, on September 12, 2013, for the amount of $273,619.92.
Chair will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Then we have the superintendent's report. Mr.
Sure.
Tempesta?
So I would like to, the opening of school went very well. We had, students were excited to be back, and the teachers and the principals had everything ready to go. Just recapping the between the last meeting, we had a very successful Administrators Institute on the 27th and 28th, and actually Mr. Nicholas alluded to that, one aspect of that, where we went over some of the things that we're going to be working on, including instructional rounds. I think I mentioned that before. We had the community in also discussing some of our common goals and objectives, particularly with working together for safety planning purposes, and we're going to start having those meetings in the next couple of weeks, along with the meeting Mr. Nicholas mentioned. We also mentioned the park test coming up, and we've been selected as a field site for that we'll talk more about as well. And it was great. It was interesting. One of the things that we spent a lot of time in the Institute talking about was that we're going to institute an instructional rounds approach where we are working as a team, visiting and looking at problems of practice, as they're called, and ways in which we can look at the tendencies within schools and see commonalities and comment on what they're trying to improve. This would be the model where district people from central office and all the principals go on tour, so to speak, to each school. We break off into teams, and we assist the principals in their schools to give them feedback on what they observed as a problem of practice. So a problem of practice could be increasing literacy. They would say, we're looking for these types of indicators. We would go out and look for those things in multiple classrooms, come back and talk about what we observed, debrief before we leave. We started one the other day. There were 4 of us. We started in Belmonte. I know that they've had a very busy week this week, and we reported a bunch of initial findings, and we're going to go to other schools next week, so that's going successfully. I included a picture in the packet of Miss Christine, we know Jankowiak. I don't know if I said it correctly, but Mrs. J, as she's known, I've seen her on tour throughout the district, leading students in the elementary schools in a version of This Town Is Your Town, tribute to Saugus. Very spirited renditions of that, and she does an outstanding job. I wanted to highlight that, as you'll see in the superintendent's reports, as in the future, that I'm going to highlight things that are going on in the classrooms, and she did a great job. So, an update as well on that I mentioned on the SOI for Saugus High School in the October 1 report. I did have a meeting with Mr. Crabtree, Principal Hashem, and STEM Director Frank Woods last week, and we spoke about the plans going forward with the SOI. We still don't have a lot of feedback from the state on that. Now that we are closing out the Belmonte project, we will be moving forward with the high school project. But we also spoke about the things that we would be looking for in the short term in the answer to the NEASC letter, expressly talking about deficiencies within the science labs. So Mr. Woods presented and Mr. Hashem presented a PowerPoint to us about some of the measures that we have to do and the strategies, and Mr. Woods is in the process of costing out some of those approaches where we would look to have things that are lab equipment and other types of, we want to meet the spirit of what we have to do for that, but we don't want to invest large amounts of money in doing that. So he had some short-term remedies for labs, particularly one in a biology lab, a physics lab, and a chem lab, where at the short term we're going to use some cyber solutions, if you will, with the Chromebooks and some other labs and probe materials, so that everything that we improve to meet the 21st century learning goals articulated in that report is transferable or portable to other, either moving it around the district, or it goes with us should we, and hopefully when we're successful with moving towards a new high school in the future. So I think we had a successful meeting that, and where he's looking into equipment that can provide that right now. The other thing that I provided that we're very pleased to announce is a district enrollment update report with a comparison between our enrollment from this week as well as what it was last year. And I'm pleased to announce that the enrollment in the district is up, particularly in the high school, where we have at this printing 32 more students in the high school than we had last year. Some of that is following up in the cohorts, but there are also people returning, as the reports we're getting to Saugus High School from other schools and placements, particularly for the comprehensive programs that they have there. The feedback that we're getting is a lot of that is directly attributed to the academies, so we're very proud of that. Lastly, I submitted as requested in the previous meeting, a budget update where I have the Tier 1 reductions as we have budgeted, and I can go through those updates to the budget to that. And I'll highlight some of the biggest parts of that, including in the first tier reduction, we have 3 cuts. The library media specialist is a confirmed cut as it was proposed. We won't be able to fund that. The coordinator of special ed programs was a cut. The 4 paras that were slated to be cut have been paid for from turnover savings. The books and technology that was slated for almost $200,000 is we are budgeting that from Chapter 70 monies that we, in conversations with the town manager, that he has committed to those. And also that will help us be able to restore the Belmonte book line that we had to use to buy the purchases earlier in the spring. Excuse me. The tech engineering teacher was funded in Tier 1, was funded because we had 3 positions and we cut down to 2 based on student enrollments. And the same is true of a position transfer at Saugus High School for the moderate sped position in the first tier. In the second tier reductions, $25,000 that was going to be allocated to restore athletic funding is a confirmed cut that we're going with. And ETL also scheduled a need for that. We have a cut. I would like to and welcome Ms. Howard to the table as well, particularly when looking at, I know I have mentioned in previous meetings the great work she was doing in the transition to the role, but we already have confirmed and gone through the budget and the itemization that we have $110,000 in program savings that are from one program that was at the high school where she's already saved that, and we're applying that to a BCBA for the district, and also that nurse position that we have been looking for. The position for the custodian at Belmonte Middle School at this time is cut. The transportation, $55,000, was funded by turnover savings. The school adjustment counselor position at elementary school, unfortunately right now, is cut. We are hoping that we still may recoup something in some outplacement differentials during the year, and we want to look at that because, as was mentioned earlier, we are very concerned with the mental health and how kids are presenting throughout the district and the stressors that are on them, and that would be the first thing that we would put back in future budgets from the on the school side that we've looked at and discussed among the principal meetings. Consumables were funded through the Belmonte mass supply item line. Now that gets us to Tier 3. And in the Tier 3, the 2 elementary teachers slated were funded through Title IIA monies and turnover savings. This circuit breaker was restored. The summer program was prepaid from the FY13 savings. The humanities teacher at the high school was paid for. The need still existed after the schedule was filled, and was paid for through turnover savings. The extended school year for special education was paid from the IDA grant and circuit breaker monies, and the high school teacher for the 18 to 22 population at Saugus High School was paid by transferring an existing Saugus High School sped teacher to the position. So, all totaled, that is how we restored. So, I don't know if you have any specific questions on those things. I know it was a quick run through.
Actually, when you were talking about the NEASC response,
Yes.
will we have answers so we can have a response by the October deadline?
Yes, yes. We have to be working towards that and show what we have. Already the presentations that and proposals that they have, along with the letter, both Mr. Hashem and Mr. Woods are confident that we'll have that letter out, as I am. No, it's important to show exactly what you're doing. You don't have to have, you have to have a plan in place. Doesn't have to be finalized, but they have been doing a lot of work on that, and we're confident that we'll meet that.
And I noticed in the tiered reductions, the books and technology, your notation says Chapter 70 from Town Manager Plus.
Yeah.
Chapter 70 as in the 400,000 additional dollars, or?
Yes, well, in our preliminary discussions with that I've mentioned in the other meetings, the money that was coming back already, Mr. Crabtree feels confident that he still has some things to resolve on his end, but that is a number that we said when in our discussions of meeting our goals in the budget and where we would be in opening school and things like that. He did commit to $260,000 in hopes, or $253,000, I believe it was, in hopes that we would potentially be able to get more if that's the case. But I've been very supportive of the schools and where we are. So.
And when would we have an answer on that? The school has started.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have an answer on that. I can get back to you on that.
Sure.
From him.
But that's all one-time use of funds money.
Oh, yes.
So it's books and,
Yeah.
so, it's not like would have been nice to have it for some personnel if we had it before the school year started, but now it's moved to a one-time source of funds.
But I just want to point out, some things are already bought, and that could have freed up money for other things that we wanted to budget for the year, that's all.
Yeah.
That was
So-
going to be my question. If you've purchased things in anticipation, and that anticipation doesn't come true, where are we going to be?
Well, specifically where we are with restoring the math book money, and that's those things, and we wouldn't be able to get the technology that we're going to need for the park, and we'll have to keep looking for funding sources for that. So.
In a budget that's already really very tight. I just don't like the fact of spending money in anticipation of receipts. That's not that's not a good practice. But, do you have any other questions? Because I have another one.
Mr. Grabowski?
Yeah, consumables, 55,000. Belmonte Middle School math supply line item. My question is, why did we have $55,000 in that line item to begin with, when apparently we didn't need it? And maybe that's just a rhetorical question, because you weren't here to do that.
No, I would have to look at
That's all right.
the
It's just a
origins of-
rhetorical question.
No, I think there was budgeted money for other books that were not in necessarily consumables, and we use that because we can use the books in the textbooks line.
Just
Okay.
questioning the methodology of putting 55,000 in the Belmonte Middle School math supply line item in the first place, when obviously now it appears that that wasn't necessary, and you took that money out of that and used it someplace else that's of more need. I do the methodology of putting it in there in the first place, I question.
It's just prioritization, that's all. It was a priority to purchase something else with that money, but
I-
really the consumables,
So that should have been done prior to this
yes.
cut.
But that was the recommendation of the previous superintendent. You can't ask the superintendent to
Right,
answer that question.
that's why I say it's more of a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Should have been done before, when we knew what the priorities were, because if you saw this as a source for consumables, other people should have seen that same process.
No,
Just
I-
my-
That's
mean,
not
and-
necessarily true,
Yeah.
because it all depends, maybe at the time.
The budget was written in March.
Yeah. You would
In-
assume that you needed to get certain supplies for next year. If we were looking for a new series.
But it's a lot of money, too. It's not just a small amount of money that
We're
you could
looking
say,
for a
well,
new
it
series.
wasn't.
Maybe we put it off to the next year. Now, I don't know that as a fact. Is that, did
Well,
we have,
Basically, and Mr. Bruno can speak specifically to the consumables, but the work that they've been doing over the last year, aligning curriculum and finally having the materials there, not just the units, but consistency throughout the elementary grades as soon as possible to the opening of school, which is right about now, we think is an enormous investment. We've already seen gains that we're excited to talk about in the next meeting as well, and really keep rolling with that. So definitely a district priority.
Well, I mean, in our meetings, we've always put consumables as a top priority.
yes.
Yeah, well, in this case too, because in kindergarten, first and second grade, that is the curriculum. So if those consumables aren't purchased, the teachers do not have materials.
But we've always put that as a priority, and
Yes.
yet apparently the money was put somewhere else, and now we found it to go back into the consumables.
Right.
Just the
Right.
process of it happening is
Right.
kind of interesting. One other question. You say on that books and technology, plus 60,000 Belmonte School Math Restore. I don't understand what that means.
Basically, the money that we get there, we're gonna restore that money in that line. We use that line to pay for that need. Basically, we have to switch it around, no one, and that's why we had to make the tough decisions not to go with the adjustment council that we certainly would like, for safety reasons and a few other things that we had to cut, so these were ideal world, the identified program needs that we had,
But where did that $60,000 come from?
From,
The chapters.
no, from the existing money budgeted in Belmonte.
For
So
math?
we used that, we had to order
So are you saying we had $115,000
I'm saying we used that.
in that
No,
line
no,
item?
no, no, I don't have it in front of me now, I can get you the money we used. We just used that to get the consumables to commit to the consumables, once we had a handle on the $1.4 million cuts, to say with confidence, okay, we can go now, let's order them. And we used that line because we didn't want to wait, we wanted to have them as close as possible to the opening of school. It's a tough process, especially coming in new, meeting with people and trying to get every bit of information we could before we committed to things.
Superintendent also included in our packets the elementary enrollment numbers for, by class size. They all seem to be good numbers, actually. And I noticed, oh, no, I'm not going to find it. There was one school that just seemed real low,
Lyndhurst.
Lyndhurst.
17.
Maybe it was Oakland.
Lyndhurst is and I think last year we talked about the Lyndhurst being busting at the seams. And now
Yeah,
that has
and,
reversed. We've lost 50. We
Well-
gained 50 last year,
Yeah.
and we've lost 50 this year. Weird.
Yeah, and part of that is the enrollment process itself over the, over the summer, and it's something that we're going to look at. Those fluctuations, a lot of that in talking with the principals when they return for our first meeting, it's tough to predict that. It's been tough to historically predict that as well. One of the things that we're hoping to do to at least not be so surprised by those numbers is to start the process earlier, advertise it, and have a central registration point for next year at central office instead of in a school. We're looking at some ways, we brainstorm ways that we think would be more conducive to consistency with that process for the public. So that's where we are right now with that.
Another question on, we talked about the monthly reports from the principals for the school committee. Have we made any progress on that initiative?
I mentioned that to them. I think we still have to, I still have to have a meeting to look at those, kind of the format with that. I can do that with members of the committee and look that over in that expectation. I did mention that to them, and they're receptive to that.
Yeah, because you said how helpful it was in the past.
It was, especially when they were talking about, like, absenteeism. Like, some schools all of a sudden have a huge problem. You start wondering why.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of things jump out at you in those reports, and it's not just, and it's mostly statistics on, or events that are going on or going to be going on. I know you report on some, but sometimes the principals like to put their own little blurbs into the
Yeah.
school committee on particular events that took place, or something special a student did, or,
Based on
Great
what you're
idea.
just saying, I'd like to see that report as just not a feel-good report,
No.
but a statistical
yeah.
picture of the schools and, attendance and personnel and things like that,
So just regular updates from the, okay. Yeah, we can look at a format for that. I think that'll be
Not
no
just a
problem.
feel-good, this is the programs we got thing. I want to see, in-depth to the schools,
Yeah, okay.
Because we don't have that opportunity to know that. You do, and we, and I'm sure you give us a lot of that, but we don't get to see that from the schools,
I
what's
think
going on.
had a meeting today with Ms. Gallivan at Lyndhurst, and we were looking at, she was showing me some of the things and communication she has with her staff, and all of that is just ready there to go. It's not, and I'm sure we can get that. That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, it's just finding the right format and.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. And just as during your report, I just wanted to, and it's not really a reminder, but kind of a request. I know the school year just started, so keep it fresh in your mind. I'd
Yeah.
like to see some artwork or anything the
We did.
students want to share with us
They're working on
to
pulling
bright-
that together.
to brighten up our
Yeah.
little space here.
The 1950s paneling gets a little old.
Yep, because it really looks bare.
They're gathering that as we speak.
Thank you. Committee, have any other questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, we'll go on to the report of Executive Director of Pupil Personnel Services.
Would be me. That would be me.
Welcome, first.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Your first meeting with us.
My first meeting. I've made it through the first 8 days of being an employee of Saugus Public Schools.
Didn't get you a nameplate yet,
I don't have a nameplate, but that's okay.
but this is
I can
Lisa
wait.
Howard for the public.
It's
My transition has been very smooth. I have to say, Jan, Jill, and Joyce have made a nice entry for me. They have been sort of the backbone of the PPS office for the summer, along with Mike. So they were very happy to have me come in and get me up to speed, and I don't know if I would be this happy if I didn't have the three of them working with me. They really keep me moving forward. So since I've started, I've been assessing, meeting people, looking at the district as a whole, looking at programs. I've met with, I would say, over 30 staff members and probably the same amount of parents over the past few weeks, and during the summer, as I came in a bit in the summer. Finding out lots of interesting things. There's some wonderful special ed teachers and therapists and paraprofessionals in this district, so it's nice to have that to start with. Some of the things that I've completed today, I worked on the progress reports for the coordinated program review, just making sure those had been submitted and making sure that they were all categorized so that when we go for our mid-cycle review, we have all of that information at hand. They've closed out our report on special ed. It's been completed. They were happy with the reports I submitted over the summer. So that's a plus. We have that off the table. I completed the 240 grant for the school district, the special ed entitlement grant. I actually did that during the summer, but it was approved yesterday. So that money is now available to begin to spend. In doing that, I took a look at the 240 grant from last year and the year before that, seeing where the focus of the money was, trying to think a little bit creatively about how to better use some of that money directly for students. It's difficult not knowing the full budget, so I've been diving into the full budget with Mike and Paula to look at how the district uses the budget to fund special education programming, staffing, and materials and supplies and therapies for our students, and comparing what's put in the regular budget to what comes out in grants. So I would assume about partway through the year, I'll probably be amending that grant to try to become a little bit more creative with how we utilize that money. The 274 grant, which is a small grant, about $12,000, came out today. So I will look at how to use that for primarily professional development is what it's geared towards. The way I'll go about assigning professional development is through sending out a survey to paraprofessionals, to parents, and to staff. I've developed the surveys. I have yet to roll them out because I'm not done meeting with staff and finding out some of the critical needs. I know testing for staff members and understanding how to test and interpret test results from some updated evaluation materials that are out there is important. There were lots of materials that were purchased last year, but staff has yet to be trained on them. So we'll use some of that 274 money to get people to train, hopefully using a lot of our in-district people. There's a lot of talent sitting in this town, and just speaking with people, I have found that we have many professionals within the school district that can really teach each other how to roll out some of these new evaluations and do it well, and then be a resource that's across the street or a phone call away when they need them. So circuit breaker I completed today. There was a correction that had to be done. Typically when you do circuit breaker and you submit it to the state, you hope and pray that they don't come back to you with 18,000 little things they want you to fix and correct. We didn't have 18,000, but we had a few come back to Saugus. I did not do the circuit breaker initial evaluation, so it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to correct it. And there weren't many, but you can't get your money until they correct it. So I worked on that. I was talking to Jeff earlier today. My door was closed, which I hate to have done, but I was in there for about 4 hours trying to correct just a few, and a lot of it was minor dates and things like that. So that was completed and faxed over to the department today. So I'm hoping that that will be solidified by tomorrow, and that money can start rolling in quarterly, which would be helpful. Mike touched a little bit on the contract that we had with School-Based Services, which was an agency that was providing some staffing at Saugus High School to provide some assistance for our kids who are more behaviorally challenged. I took a look at that contract when I first came in, and quite frankly didn't understand it, which motivates me to figure out what it is. And after speaking with Mike and Dawn Trainer, who's been sort of my right hand since I entered the school district, we looked at how we can utilize our own staff to teach our children. I prefer that method than looking at outsourcing contracts and service to agencies. It just makes my life a lot easier, and the staff in the building, and our children. We know them best, and I think to bring services utilizing the people that we have is the best scenario. In looking at that, we certainly saved a little bit of money. I hope to find some other programs within the district to be able to do that as well. And in my brief look at how the 240 grant was used last year, outsourcing to some people to come in and do some evaluations of our students, I think, like I said, we have some professionals that are here already that may be able to provide that service while they are working for Saugus Public Schools. The out-of-district students, we currently have 30 out-of-district students. 16 are at a collaborative, 3 residential, and 11 day school students. Out-of-district placements and out-of-district meetings are something that I actually enjoy doing. I plan to attend as many out-of-district meetings as I can to help me become familiar with the families of the students that we have placed out. And it will also help me think about what types of programs we can develop here within the district to return out-of-district students, if we can, back to the public school. Homeless population, there are presently 11 students identified as homeless. There are many hotels on Route 1, I'm sure you're aware of, where the state will place families in need of during a transition period, whether it's a fire or losing their housing for various reasons. Students who are placed in those hotels are entitled to either return to their school of origin, where they were when they became homeless, or to come to Saugus Public Schools. I'm looking into the practices that were, here prior to identifying those students and identifying where they came from, and sort of connecting with those students a little bit more closely to find out what their story is and hopefully bring them here to Saugus Public Schools. Reason being is transportation costs for bringing students back to their school of origin is quite costly. Right now, for the month of September, we're looking at about a $4,500 bill for transporting students. The district from where the child came from is responsible for 50% of the transportation costs, but we're still looking at, for the month of September, about a $4,500 charge. So looking into streamlining that process a little bit, really just to make sure that if we are transporting, that we're doing it because the school district is entitled, the student is entitled, and the school district is responsible. That's about it. I'm really pleased with the quality of staff that I have seen in my very short time here, and the welcome that I've received. I said to Mike, the only one who welcomes me more than the Saugus Public School staff is my dog. And he's very happy to see me every day. I'm hoping that's how we continue right up through June. So thank you for allowing me to update you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, the CPR is now complete.
The CPR for special education is complete. There's about 57 areas of compliance that they look at across the district and then require you to do the progress reports. There were about 18 progress reports that had to be completed throughout the course of last year and right up until September 6th.
I don't believe the school committee got a copy of the report.
Of the full CPR, which includes ELL and civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
We can get you a copy of that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you could just put it on docs, and
Yeah.
that way you don't have to make
Absolutely.
paper copies.
So the special education component has, all of the progress reports have been completed, so they have now closed that phase out, and the expectation is what they've asked you to do and what you told them you will do now for the next several months, and in the mid-cycle review in about a year and a half, they will look to see if we follow through on what we said we were going to do.
The committee, just keep us up to speed on that, because when requests come in, I mean, even if it's for a transfer to cover a particular area, addressing something in the CPR, having an understanding of why
Sure.
is very helpful to us.
We can get you a copy of that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Doucette.
Just a quick thing, and I'm excited to hear you talk about how you're going to use in-building personnel to teach in-building personnel. And it's something for the superintendent and for the CIA director over there to understand that. It's so much shorter than anybody else. It's so important for me. It's one of my passions that I have at my school, because A, it saves money, but B, it brings that connection between teachers where there's, I mean, I always said, in my school, I say, we have 50 masters of education in this building. Why do we have to go outside and find somebody to bring in who has a master's in education to teach us what we have? We have so much expertise in-house that we can share with each other. And then once you do that, that's where you begin to make and build the professional learning community that we all talk about what we want, where you have teachers now sharing and talking about education rather than just the Red Sox scores, because they've seen each other in that role where they have things to offer and receive from each other. And so it's just a big thing.
Have you read our curriculum team goals for the year?
No,
Did you get an advanced
I
copy?
did not get an advanced copy.
That's what
Stole
it
my
is.
thunder.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Kidding.
No, but we do,
But yeah, it's a big deal, and I'd like to see that we perpetuate that throughout the district at all levels.
we were reading an article not too long ago, in one of our packets. It was put about teachers teaching teachers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, in North Reading,
1000%.
we instituted a professional development on a single day, where it's all teacher run, and so you do they do surveys and they determine where the gaps are in teacher knowledge, for what we want to, how we want to drive our district, and then we identify teachers that can bring those lessons to the teachers, and so it's a completely teacher run day, teachers teaching teachers all day long, and it's a menu, so you get to go in and say, do I want to go to the robotics class? Do I want to go learn how to use smart goals? Do I want to go learn how to, do statistical analysis? And so the teachers can sort of self-direct themselves to try to find weaknesses. It's a pretty good program.
We asked teachers on opening day exactly that, if there are things that they were interested in taking or teaching or could offer, and to go through their principals, and we're going to look at that as an agenda item for our district leadership meetings. We've already had some requests, had a conversation with the principal today who had some ideas about not only specifically what she thought we needed, but ways in which we could offer it in-house. So,
And it saves money.
yeah, it's great.
It's always nice too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Well,
the most
it-
valuable form of professional development, as you know, is teacher to teacher, and developing that internal capacity, and it doesn't just become something that you get and then put on your shelf to collect dust.
Well, I mean,
you're really
and
exchanging ideas.
teachers hate the new term of the year. So I always say, if we create a professional learning community, but we don't call it one, is it still one? So we're just not going to call it a professional learning community because we don't want them to get nervous. But we'll get them in a room, and we'll get them teaching each other, and we'll get them talking about learning and how to change their lessons, and we'll just not call it that so they don't get nervous. And I think that's a great way to go about it.
Mr. Bruno, did you have a,
Before we move on,
I'm
I have a
sorry.
few questions.
Mr. Grabowski?
Before you came, and thank you for your report.
Sure.
We used to get verbal reports, and I requested that they be in writing, so we have something in our packet to refer to in the future. Because what you say now, if we don't take a note down,
Sure,
we don't remember, or I don't remember. So if you could in the future.
sure, no
Okay.
problem.
Second question is, that contract that you were speaking of, it's about $250,000, that's done.
230,000. It was not renewed.
So are they're
Money is
gone?
still being spent, but not all of the money, but the contract itself is not renewed, so that company is no longer
In our
providing
schools.
service in our school, yeah.
How many students did you say were out of district?
30?
Looking at the district enrollment, it says 59.
So that number, I would assume that number includes students that are not placed at either a collaborative, a residential school, or a private special ed school.
It says out of district, ODP.
But that term, out of district, may be also referring to other students. I'm not sure I'm not really sure what you're looking at, but I'm not sure.
Our district enrollment figure.
It could be kids at charter schools. I'm not really sure what number they configured. There are not 59 special ed kids
I'll
out.
ensure that myself.
Okay, yeah, all right,
Yeah, they're just listed by grade.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure what those numbers are.
Not-
okay.
That's the category within the student management system, so it might,
As I know, we have a quota at the school that I don't want to mention of 75, so that figure would not jive as
No,
charter schools.
no. Out of district is not for private school.
Private's not a, charter's not a private.
Charter is
a
public.
State-run.
Right, but the ones listed on here would not be, the ones that we, students that we pay for that go to a different
Correct.
school.
And another question, you might not know the history, but I was taken aback by 11 homeless students. Last year, we were told in the month of June, we spent $30,000 on transportation. Was that for 11 homeless students?
Well, the number fluctuates through the year. It's a very difficult number to project. Across the state, it depends where you live, for the most part. It's not always students that live in Saugus that have become homeless for a circumstance, whether it be, like I said, a fire or a loss of an apartment or an economical reason. In Saugus, you have hotels where the state has, for lack of better terms, taken a section of that hotel and utilizes it through the Department of Transitional Services to place families who come to the state and say, I have no place to live.
In Saugus, they've taken the whole hotel, so.
So once that happens, your number here in Saugus is certainly going to be higher than that of, and I won't use Ipswich for an example, I'm trying to figure like-sized communities, I'll use Winthrop, it is higher. However, you could have a time where, there's a handful of families for, whether it be economical reasons or a fire in a neighborhood that you've lost a few houses. That number can fluctuate quite a bit. You could have a month where you have no students who are homeless.
Well, I just, again, and Mrs. Andrews isn't here today, but I'm still would like to see a report on the McKinney-Vento transportation last year when we were given that figure several weeks ago of $30,000 for the month of June, where we spent $90,000 for the whole year. Why? And it astounds me how we would spend a third of our budget that we expended for 1 month's worth of homeless transportation.
It also depends on where they're going. Sometimes,
Right.
and
So
we had
I can give
issues
you
on
an
the
example
south.
of a cost that could be very high, and part of my former training is to try to bring kids to the school district that's closer for a number of reasons, that the distance that you leave a child on a vehicle, the age of a child on a vehicle. If a family gets placed here in Saugus that lived in Attleboro, if a child's going to be on the vehicle for longer than an hour, you have a pretty good argument to try to keep the child within Saugus. But the law is very clear that the family has the choice for that child to continue to go to the same school where he became homeless from. And the reason is for lack of disruption. I mean, the child is already now disrupted because they've become homeless, and the stable part of their world is school. So the state has determined that they do have that right, and if the parent says, I want my child to stay where they are, and it's in a reasonable amount of, distance, we're not going to, we had a family come from Somalia. Certainly, we're not going to transport the children back to Somalia. However, if they're placed in a hotel on Route 1, they have the right, to go to Saugus Public Schools.
I realize the thought process behind it, but the actual numbers astounds me.
Yeah, the number is
And
large.
when we've signed bills, I've very rarely seen anything other than Cambridge, Somerville, Boston, and Lawrence.
Yeah.
Never seen anything that would account for a $30,000 bill in 1 month of the month of June,
And-
which
and
is a
it-
third of what we
Sure.
spent altogether.
And a trip, and that's something we can definitely look into, a trip from Saugus to even Malden, it could cost you $75 a day, based on just the rate settings for different companies. And we do look into getting the lowest rate possible. And you share it with other communities, and sometimes there's a gentleman's agreement with the cost share from other communities. And I'm sure that you brought to my attention at one point that there was a bill for a service that you were unclear of. And in looking into it, it was a run that was not approved by me. So that bill was not paid.
No, I want to thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so the bills, I will scrutinize those bills
Yeah.
and take a peek at them and make sure that they are runs that we have approved.
Yeah, I thank you for doing
Sure.
that, because although it was only around $700, it's still,
It adds up,
it adds up.
Sure.
You know,
but thank you, we'll check into that.
okay, thanks. That's it.
Any other questions? Mr. Bruno, did you have something for this evening?
I'm gearing up for the next
The
meeting.
next meeting?
That's going to be the big
Well, I
one.
thought maybe you'd want to make an announcement today that we're scheduling our next meeting with,
We've decided to run it an hour early, correct? At 6 o'clock, so we're going to, by that point, the next meeting will have all of the official results on MCAS and the school accountability report, so the presentation on our performance for last spring will be at the next school committee meeting once everything's official. So, looking forward to it.
yep, we're looking forward to it as well, and we'll get an announcement out to the newspapers and such.
okay.
Let people know.
So that meeting, executive session is going to be pushed back to the end, maybe, if we need one?
If we need,
Because we're meeting from 4 to 6 and then start at 6.
but we're just going to be here all day.
Okay. That's why I keep my Thursdays open.
I have a couple of questions for Mr. Bruno. Is he going to give a report or?
Not this meeting, it's next.
Well, I guess I can go back to the superintendent's report if I could. Park, I've read about, are we doing the testing this year for the company that's doing the park so they can calibrate their test?
We've been selected, and I need to respond to.
Because in all my emails from Mass Association of School Committees,
Yeah.
there's a general concern from school committees that they are being chosen to do that at our expense and at our detriment, because it's not a required test. It's a test that's being done so they can,
It's a field test.
Yeah, happening for that across the company. nation. yeah, and they're saying, why don't we, the people that are chosen, get together and ask for compensation for that? And it's also disrupting, and I don't know if you feel the same way, it's disrupting our education in the classroom, because this is not a test that we have to do that we're going to be graded on. It's only for the company to see how their test is working.
Well,
We will have the results of that test, correct?
Yeah, but it's not a scale test for us. It's a test, basically.
I can speak to this a little bit. I mean, they're field testing at different levels, so there are districts that were selected randomly across Massachusetts to be part of the field test. We were one of them. So we have, and it's not everybody. It's 1 to 2 classes at different grade levels, but it does impact kids. We will have them taking the MCAS and then also taking a section or 2 of Park. We have 3. I think there's 3 out of the 4 elementary schools will have some kids testing, middle school as well in ELA, math at the high school, as well as I think an ELA test or 2. Most of them will be paper and pencil tests, with the exception of the high school, which they will be piloting online, and we do have the technology to pull it off.
But it's not a test like an MCAS that the results will not be used.
For accountability purposes?
Right.
No, because it's a small subset of kids that are being tested. It's not going to be like an entire grade. It'll be, I want to say it was 100 kids at a whack, or 2 or 3.
But who's telling us that we have to do this? The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education?
Yes.
So the company's not asking us to do it. The
Yes,
DESE
they're
is
doing it
telling
for
us.
the have you
Yeah,
read?
the DESE is telling us to do it.
Right, but it's the company that's getting the results to
Yeah.
But-
check
Oh,
their
we're getting
test.
the results as well,
No, we're not being held accountable for those
Oh.
results.
but we're getting the results.
We could, yeah, but
It's
we're not accountable.
the thought process behind it is in order for it to be, they want to make it as valid and useful of an assessment once everybody is taking it. So you do that by field testing it, looking at the results, seeing how they compare to MCAS, and then in the following year, so not this current year, but the following year, districts will be given the choice either to take Park for all students, or take MCAS for 1 more year. And then that's the final phase in to the following year, which will be all Park.
I've just been following the emails that I've been receiving from members of MASC.
The benefits to us, I mean, there are some benefits to doing it in the sense of just familiarity with the new instrument. So you'll have teachers and administrators who will have seen this test. You'll have kids who will have taken the test. If we choose to the following year, which is something that the superintendent and I have talked about, and would recommend, if we have the technology infrastructure, to go ahead and choose to do the Park the following year, DESI and the commissioner has promised districts who make that choice, they'll be held harmless, so to speak, so that their accountability results can't go down as a result of adopting a new performance measure for all the kids across the district. It puts us in a position where when everybody does go live with Park, we will have already done it a year, and our teachers will be in that much, and our school district will be in that much better of a position to, be going full tilt on it when it happens.
But at the same time, I just don't think you get to say no to DESI.
Right.
You just don't get to say, we didn't want to take the park test because it's going to be inconvenience.
We're part of the field test,
Yeah,
and this
it's-
wasn't something that we said
Yeah.
over here. We
No,
were
doing it in my
randomly
school- my school
selected
too.
to do it, yeah.
And my school's upset that they're doing it, but you don't get to say no to DESI generally.
The good news is that the window that they gave us allows us to, the kids who do have to take it can do it after they complete their MCAS for that window, so the windows line up as such that you can at least put the priority on the test that counts, but
They're going to love that.
it is what it is.
Let's take 3 days of testing followed by another 3 days of testing.
Right.
Yay.
Which is gonna, which is potentially could distort
Takes time out, takes time on, reduces time on
the results. I mean,
Exactly one of
there's-
the
Oh, I know.
points they made.
Right, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, obviously. I mean, I certainly, there's two different windows now with Park. I mean, you can go overboard with standardized testing, there's no question about that. And it does cut into instructional time, which is a big deal.
And the other thing, I asked a couple of weeks ago, can we get a report on the teacher evaluation, the percentages of people that have fallen into the categories?
I have that data. I can
Get that on the next one.
generate that whenever we need it. I have access to that now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. There's no report of subcommittees, correct?
Correct.
Just as a reminder, policy subcommittee has to get the updated policies.
I got the
Mrs.
email.
McNair. So just a reminder.
I know.
And old business, online payments, there have been several complaints, and I know the business office has received some on online payments. Just so the public's aware, and I know I wish Ms. Andrews was here to explain it, or if anyone else can, there is a minimal charge to use a debit card or a check card for online payments. It's like 50 cents to $1, depending on what you have, which card you use. But a credit card is a much higher rate, and I guess parents weren't aware of that when they paid, and some have received a $30 charge on top of,
Yikes.
yeah, for using a credit card. Can we, look into that
Yeah, we can.
and maybe some options? I know we were trying to get, last spring, trying to get all payments online, and as yet, we don't have everything on there.
We don't. It's been hard to convert to that. There've been obstacles, and the other thing that we're getting back, and to your point of we really need to look more closely at this, is an additional hardship to
Yeah.
go. There are some cases where getting a prepaid debit card is easier and less expensive than a bank check, as many parents pay with different fees, but we do need more attention to this. I agree.
Well, I don't think people were aware that there was going to be that large of an additional charge for using, and I know it's a convenience to use they're charging it, there's no cash on the other end, per se. So, but that was huge. $30 is a huge,
Well, I believe I looked into paying taxes online in town
that's right.
and use a credit card. They whack you with a $30 fee for paying, say, your town real estate taxes online. Convenience, but the town doesn't get the money. We don't get the money. The company that allows it to process, they get that $30 fee tacked on, and that's absurd.
If you use a debit card, do they charge you as
Still,
much?
yeah, I think it's the same,
Same?
yep, because of the processing that they have to do with it.
Well, we talked about raising fees, and then
Yeah, that
that's
should-
that's
Figure
huge.
out what's going on there.
That's not reasonable at all.
We're trying to make it convenient and
Well, I mean, it's one thing if you're
And-
talking about your taxes, which it's, if you want to pay the $30 for the convenience, that's your decision, because you can also go down, and drop off a check.
right in
you
the
know,
yellow box.
Right in the yellow
outside.
box outside, so the $30 is your, but if we're not accepting anything other than online payments, you have no choice, then that's a concern. I don't like that.
No.
But I would think we can, whether it's through the town or our business office, look at other companies and see what their charges are and go with whoever who charges us the less, because they're the ones that are making the money, not us.
And that's what I'm wondering, can we do that on our own? That's another question we need to ask, because payments go through the treasurer. And I know the treasurer is the one who set up the payments for the online payment. So I'm not sure if we can or should be setting it up outside the treasurer. Or maybe we can just do a little more research to see if she can find a different service.
I can talk to Paul about that, and we can try to get some information to you on that, exactly where we are in the process.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, just a procedural thing on old business.
Mm-hmm.
When a report is asked for, or further information is asked for,
Mm-hmm.
can we include it under old business until it's been disposed of? So
Oh.
that things don't get lost to memory?
Yeah, I know, I just have a handwritten list of stuff.
But can we, when somebody asks for something, can we include it under old business and keep carrying it until we get that information and then take it off? Is that possible?
It's possible, yes.
Because if somebody forgets
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 weeks down the line or 2 months down the line, oh yeah,
Well-
remember I asked for that report?
Well, I have a standing list only because a lot of things are deferred out, such as the chargebacks. We're supposed to this month get a report on the chargebacks. If you recall, the treasurer and the business director were going to look into get samples from other communities to come up with a reasonable agreement. That's supposed to be at this month's meeting, so that's on my
See, I
list
wouldn't
for
have
next.
remembered
You wouldn't
that.
have remembered that, but I have it on my
But
standing
if we
list.
can carry it over in our minutes under old business until it's disposed of?
Sure. Yeah.
Or what, if you have the list, you can
Yeah, I
add
can
that
just-
list. Just makes it easier to follow.
Okay.
I guess either that or I'm getting old and don't remember as well.
That's fine. Just call them open issues. Okay. And is, just for the public's, so the public's aware, do we take cash at all? Is cash totally out?
It was a recommendation from the report, and yes, we haven't taken that. I would, there could be cases that I don't know about or at Paula's level, but when we met with the advisors and everyone, that is our expectation for this year.
But students can still buy lunch with cash?
Yes. I don't know otherwise right now, I can get that.
No, I understand. Parents, only because I get asked questions all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't always know the answer. So I thought if we could get the information out to the public when these questions come up, such as, why isn't it possible that if they can only pay in cash, they can't come to one location, such as the business
Sure.
office here at administration? I don't know if that's something we want to look into. I mean, people throw out ideas. I'd like to pass them along to see if it's worth considering.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's all only because this is all new.
Yeah.
you know, after the audit, we've changed a lot of, and gone to new protocols with cash handling and deposits, so I think the public needs to be made more aware, because they're just so used to handing this child whatever, $30 for this, $20 for that.
Yeah, so I'll confirm that with her, and we'll advertise that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. There isn't anything else under old business, correct? New business, we have some wonderful new business.
Joe, hold your horses.
Don't want to get excited.
Well, first, we have a recommendation on the home school program. That's the superintendent you have.
Yeah. So we have, excuse me, I'm trying to find it on my computer, but I'm going to go to hard copy. Yes, we have just a recommendation to accept the homeschool programs for 3 students at the Lyndhurst, 1 student at the Belmonte, a student at Saugus High School, 2 students at Saugus High School, and a student at Veterans Memorial School.
And of course, you've reviewed and approved the curriculum that's
Yes,
offered.
yes.
Are there any other additional services for these students?
None requested.
Do you have any questions?
What are the numbers? Do you want me to read it? Do you want me to make a motion with the numbers in it? Or can I
Say
just
as presented by the superintendent,
Make a
memo
motion-
dated
make a
September
motion to
12th.
approve the homeschooling program for the memo dated September 12th from the superintendent?
Chair will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. But now we have gifts, and that's the fun part of the meeting. Do you want to present?
Sure. So the first, I have a gift from Mr. John Smolinski and the SBC. They generously paid for breakfast and luncheons for the Administrators Leadership Academy on the 27th and 28th, as well as new teacher orientation on the 29th. And those totals for Charlie's Pizza totaling $376.70, as well, and another one for $396.70. And there are also receipts for $104 for the orientation, $104, and a check for J&M for $114.
Saugus Business Education Collaborative is a really generous of them to.
They really are, and that's something that I feel fortunate, and I want to recognize them again for the generosity. They've done that throughout the years, and we did consistent to past practice, but it really is an outstanding benefit to the community. So,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Doucette.
I make a motion to accept the gifts from the Saugus Business Education Collaborative for the SBA, for the lunch for administrative leaderships and new teacher orientation.
The chair will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. And of course, a big thank you to SBEC. While we talk about SBEC, we have the trivia night scheduled already?
Yes, we do. I don't have my
I
flyer
don't
with
have
me,
my flyer with me either.
but it is. But I have followed
Hang on.
some trash
October
talking
17th.
threads.
October 17th.
Yeah,
Technology's wonderful.
Trash talking has begun.
Yep. October 17th, SBEC Trivia Night. They're holding it at Kowloon again?
Yeah.
Yep, at Kowloon. So
Shaded by.
form a team or come and have fun. It's a
a good
blast,
night.
it really is.
Looking forward
Good
to it.
night.
It is lots
Yeah,
of
it's the
fun.
4th annual trivia extravaganza, Thursday, October 17th, at Kowloon at 7 o'clock. Teams of up to 5 people can be put together. The cost is $200 per team. All the players and teams must be registered in advance. The winning team will win a trophy that they'll get to keep at
One
their
year.
place of whatever business, school, if it's a school or business. Gift certificates and bragging rights will be given out. Spectators are encouraged and welcome to come. It's going to be $5 a head to come in. We're going to have all kinds of raffles. Superintendent, myself attended the SBEC meeting the other night, and we're getting together all kinds of raffles. Food can be ordered from the Kowloon, delicious Chinese food. There'll be a cash bar. Registration forms can be picked up at any school, at the administration building, at Saugus Bank, Saugus Federal Credit Union, Rossetti Insurance, and Carpenito Real Estate. So,
Just note that they only run 2 fundraisers a year. And the grant money that comes back to the school, gift money for various things, is just unbelievable. It really is. And the businesses, parents, and school personnel really get together, especially for the Taste for Education. That's the big one. This is the smaller event, but it's growing every year
The
since
competition
they
is
started.
fierce.
It is fierce, it
It's
is. And
fun.
they say bragging rights, it's true. It's true. So just wanted to give them a little plug there. We'll have a little plug next meeting as well. Next, Superintendent's goals and objectives, which we have already talked about. We are going to meet on the 26th at 4 and kind of get that on track. We have on the agenda consultant contracts. Grabowski,
I was
did
just
you-
looking to get a copy of the contract.
Okay.
They weren't included in the packet.
I'll get that.
And we did receive correspondence from the town clerk, as you see in your documents, regarding the upcoming election in November and the use of the schools, and of course, thanking the school department for that use. Now, on that day is no school, right?
That's right.
Are we doing a professional development day?
Yes.
Are we scheduling that at the high school? Do you, have you?
18th?
Yeah, no, on the 5th,
Oh, sorry.
November 5th?
Yeah, that'll be at the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because in the past, we had a little bit of a problem with professional development day at a polling location. Didn't work
No,
out so
It was
well,
at the
so.
vets, and the people couldn't park because all the teachers were at the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it'll be at the high school.
So that works out well. So, is there any other business this evening?
Yes. You missed the
Mr.
biggest thing
Grabowski.
that's happened in this town in years for new business.
Is it on the agenda?
No, but it's the rededication of the Belmonte School.
Oh, gee.
The
It's
biggest
just
thing
this
that's
morning.
happened for years.
It
How
was
can
just
we
this
pass that
morning.
up? It was a great event.
It was a great event.
We had, I want to thank everybody that participated, as well as I'm sure every committee member wants to thank them. I thank Police Chief Dominic DeMella and his officers that showed up in force to support the school being named after the late Gus Belmonte, died in the line of duty. We had Mrs. Belmonte, Gus's widow was there. Her son, Gus's son, spoke very eloquently about what it meant to name the school after Gus and his contribution to the children of the school. State Treasurer Grossman was there. Mr. McCarthy, who's the Executive Director of SBA, was there. SBAC. I'm sure I'm not leaving, hopefully I'm not leaving anybody else, but I'm sure you can elaborate. It was a great time. I mean,
It was.
probably one of the better events that I've ever attended as a school committee member, and it was really good. And everybody is invited Saturday from 10 a.m. to noontime
To noon.
to tour the school.
Yeah.
The children were great, the band,
The band.
congratulations to the Belmonte Band, the chorus that participated, and the children that were chosen, the web leaders there that did their tours. They were very well versed on the aspects of the school that were changed. They had T-shirts that were given to them by Consigli. that had a logo that there was a contest for an art project, and it said Consigli 20,000, 2013 Belmonte renovation on their sleeves. I think everybody was pleasantly surprised and more than happy that we've done that project, the first one in years.
And it's almost finished. We'll be having a couple of more meetings of the Belmonte MSBA Building Committee to wrap that up, small checklist items. But yes, it was a wonderful event, and I do thank everybody, including, the staff at the middle school. They did a great job, they really did. Everyone, it was just a nice day, too.
It was
The weather
great.
was nice.
It was fantastic to hear the comments about the school from all the dignitaries that were there and the superintendent, and, moving forward into a new building that, and I've always maintained, I don't care what the building is, as long as the education in it is good, but we now have a building that we can all be proud of to do the education inside of it.
It's not always about the looks, but the infrastructure is all completely upgraded. It'll last us another 50 years. Is there any other business this evening?
Madam Chair. 49 years ago this month, the Philadelphia Phillies blew a 6.5 game lead with 12 games left as manager Gene Mark overused Jim Bunning and Chris Short, and they lost the pennant by 1 game. Hope that doesn't befall our Boston Red Sox this year. Motion to adjourn.
Cheers, seconds. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.